Lesson 1. What is Gnosis? The origin of Gnosis. Gnosis. It is as old as man and as extensive as space, because within it, the context of all wisdom and knowledge is enclosed about our planet. Of all the worlds, of all the suns and galaxies that turn on their orbital routes within the infinite space. Although it is certain that we must consider within the Gnostic teaching its Eastern Hellenistic elements, including Persia, Mesopotamia, Syria, India, Palestine, and Egypt, etc., we can never ignore the clear Gnostic principles of the sublime religious cults of the Nahuas, Toltecs, Zapotecs, Mayan, Chibcha, Incas, Quichuas, etc., 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 from Latin and Central America. Speaking frankly and without no hesitation, we could say that Gnosis is a very natural functionalism of the conscience, one philosophia which is perennis et universalis, in the Essenes Gospels of John, which is only now being known by Christianity and given as knowledge to the Gentiles. Those ones who are external to the teachings of Christ. One asked Jesus, "Master, what are the laws of life?" And he responded, seated among them, "In truth, I say to you, no one can be happy except following the law." And others answered, "We all obey the laws of Moses, our lawgiver, just as they are written in the sacred scriptures." And Jesus answered them, "Don't look for the law in that which is written, because the law is divine, whereas that is written is death. In truth, I say to you, that Moses did not receive the laws of God in writing, but the live word of the Lord. The law is the live word of the live God, the intimate being, the living prophets, for living men who are resurrected. In everything that has life, the law is written, but look for it mainly in yourself. Because in truth, I say to you, all living things are closer to God than the writing that lack life. These lessons of the fifth gospel are written for all those who want to live and to enjoy wisdom tomorrow, so that they can know how to defend themselves in the combat of this frightful storm, in which the human species now succumbs. When considering the most general problems of different humanities and peoples, undoubtedly we find that the neuralgic center of all problems is the lack of knowledge, or the absence of truth. The unsettling search for the truth has taken the different races and people to search for it throughout history, giving origin to an independent field of investigation, receiving the name the theory of knowledge, or Gnoseology. Etymology of the word Gnosis, Gnosis. It is the knowledge of a transcendental and transformative wisdom that teaches to the humanity to see, to hear, and to feel all the things that until that moment were like great mysteries and enigmas. G. The genesis, the beginning, or the start. No, negation is the negative expression within the triad of the creation, symbolized by the woman as the negative aspect. SI, affirmation, is the expression of the positive force in the man, being the positive element. S, synthesis, constitutes the neutral aspect or balance in the triad, being the conciliatory element in the entire contexts of creation, symbolizing fire or light. Gnosis is the doctrine of the synthesis, coming from the first science Jano or Jaino, and its origin is as old as the universe. The word jinn, from which gnosis comes, is simply the modification of the same Latin word. Its real version comes from the Persian and Arab roots, and it is used by many authors. The Jnana or Gnosis is simply the science of Jano, which is the initiatic knowledge, and the variations of its name for each language. Thus we find the Greek word gnosis, meaning wisdom. Gnosis is the scientific, religious, artistic, esoteric, psychological, and cultural doctrine synthesis which has given origin to all movements and philosophical currents. The gnosis, as opposed to universal knowledge. Gnosis is not common knowledge anyway. Gnosis is knowledge with great prestige, and very few people get to understand this knowledge. It is transcendental, dealing with man and the universe, conceivable by means of the faculties of cognition given by the being, who additionally teaches humanity to see and to feel all things that until that moment were great mysteries. It is the real scientific school of regeneration that pursues the transformation of the human being. and tries for each man to revert back into his basic principles and customs, and that become a true man. To regenerate means to return to be generated within ourselves, to create within ourselves a new cosmos. If Gnosis of the great archaic mysteries comes to be known, it is because some very holy men have come to regulate the dynamism of the internal being due to their loyalty to the doctrine. Without any previous information on Gnostic anthropology, it would be very difficult to make a rigorous study of the diverse anthropological histories left by the Aztec, Mayan, Egyptian cultures, etc. The Mexican codices, the Egyptian papyruses, the Assyrian bricks, the Dead Sea Scrolls, as well as certain ancient temple and sacred monoliths, old hieroglyphics, pyramids, tombs, etc., all offer in their symbolic depth the Gnostic meaning that definitively escapes all literal interpretation and cannot be based on something value exclusively intellectual. Throughout the course of history, great schools of regeneration have existed. These schools taught in a simple form which hid their true principles and foundations. Gnosis is a compilation of all the wisdom from the old schools, and for this reason, it is called the Doctrine of Synthesis, and is here on earth to reveal all the mysteries which until now have been hidden from humanity. The fifth gospel teaches man these mysteries. The Gnostic science is the doctrine of the new era of Aquarius. It is not against any religion, school, or system of spiritual education, because it affirms that all religions are precious pearls woven in the gold thread of the divinity, Gnosis as divine wisdom. We believe that one who experiences the truth is deeply religious. Those who have incarnated the truth have founded great religions and great schools of mysteries. There is no religion higher than the truth. We must distinguish between religious forms and religious principles. The different religions have different ways to teach each principle. The great, infinite, universal cosmic religion assumes different forms according to the necessities of each race and of each era. Religion is an inherent property of life. It is possible for a man to belong to no religious group and yet be deeply religious. Gnosis is divine wisdom, since it is knowledge of a superior esoteric character and studies life, the universe, and the phenomena within these, not only from an exoteric but an esoteric point of view through the senses of external perception, but also from the psychic spiritual or esoteric point through the internal or hidden senses. Primary Gnostic education leads us to the knowledge of our physical body, the soul, and the immortal spirit. Knowing our body, we know what vehicle we walk in and who is governing it at the moment. We can understand its owner and improve its owner. Then we realize that the one who handles the body is the soul that until then is the product of the senses, and it is vivid knowledge if we become conscious of it. Here we are taught to turn the mortal soul into an immortal soul. The conscience our soul is, released by means of three factors that can revolutionize it: death of the ego, rebirth, and sacrifice for humanity. Only the superior man is able to sacrifice himself for his fellow humans. Thus, the first order given by the divine law of God says, "Thou shalt love thy God above all things." This, the doctrine of the eye and the doctrine of the heart. The doctrine of the eye is related to the intellect and includes all external knowledge. The doctrine of the heart has to do with intuition, the conscience, and the internal being. The doctrine of the eye strengthens the mind, matter, and the desire to live. It thinks, reasons, comes to conclusions, and leads us to non-fructiferous action. And it wants to solve everything by itself. It does not consider the voice of the internal master. The internal master neither thinks nor reasons, but it is the voice of the intuition. Schools have already given all they had to offer. The centers of knowledge are now converted into business places, each with its tyrant that forbids its proficient students to go out in search of knowledge. The prohibitions here, the excommunications and threats there, always leaving things for tomorrow, making a big issue out of the password, the protective amulet, the non plus ultra of the secrets that no other school possesses. We are not looking for flatterers of masters, nor are we interested in hard-hearted henchmen, says the VM Samael Anweor. In addition, he says, we are guiding pillars. We indicate with logical thought and exact concept the path to follow, so that each person arrives at his internal master. He who lives in silence within each of you. Wisdom belongs to the intimate being one, and is not a question of false poses. We are not in search of followers. We only want each person to follow himself, his own internal master, his sacred inner self, because he is the only one that can save and glorify us. Art, science, philosophy, and religion are the method of acquiring knowledge. Gnosis has its fundamental principles on which all knowledge is maintained. There are the four great columns supporting Gnosis. Science. It investigates of all things in knowledge by its principles and causes, since it contains of all wisdom and multiple knowledge of the universe within. In these studies, we are not limited to the three-dimensional world of Euclid, because there is existence in the fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh dimensions. With science, we begin to penetrate into the old world of the alchemists, the science of transformations, studying works of Raimundo Lulio, Nicolas Flamel, Count Cagliostro, Saint-Germain, Fulcanelli, and Michael of Nostradamus, just to mention a few of the alchemists who sought to transform lead into gold. But to those wise ears that lead, is the personality of the ego to be transformed into the gold of the spirit. The alchemy leads us to correctly channel all the energies of our body, through scientific and bioenergetic means, through the study of our own inner nature. The Kabbalah is the science of the numbers, permitting us to know what life lies behind each number like live entities, as was taught by Pythagoras. Kabbalah is a Hebrew word meaning tradition, and through the knowledge of the numbers, man can be known using the comparative study of all existing religions and beliefs. Science permits us to penetrate in the amphitheater of cosmic science, studying the astrology, astronomy, anthropology, and above all, the science of life, that can only be known by those who are intrepid enough to lance themselves into knowing themselves. As it says at the entrance in the temple of Delphos in ancient Greece, Homo nocete ipsum. That means, man, know thyself, and you will know the universe and the gods. Philosophy. It teaches us to reflect on the why of things, who we are, where we come from, where we are going, what we are doing in this three-dimensional world, why we were born, why we are living now, and why we are going to die. The philosophy of living the moment tells us what we are doing at the moment, and with it, the dream our conscience is in at time. We may be doing something and thinking of something totally different. And this is the dream. This is the mistake. The true philosopher looks for the answers to the great enigmas of creation and of his own life, and he seeks to practice this in his daily life, do all those daily tasks with conscience, and realizing that we are here to learn. Nobody is your friend, nobody is your enemy. All people are your teachers. As one wise man said, it is the search for beauty in all of its manifestations. We can see that this knowledge has given the origin to all the arts, sculpture, painting, selected music, healthy poetry, letters, sports, because all of these are of spiritual character that activate the superior centers of the human being and gives us a deep harmony. The artist, besides knowing the arte regia of nature, looks for those artistic works for the transmission of the cosmic's truths that are beyond the time. One can be an artist in one's life, being a good son, grandson, father, mother, grandfathers, etc., and being an exemplary citizen, knowing how to walk, to eat, to dress, to speak, and to relate to nature and one's fellow man. Religion, the being is re-evaluating himself and knowing himself, which is called self-gnosis. This is the real gnosis. The self-knowledge of the being is a supra-rational action which depends on the person's inner being, who has nothing to do with intellectualisms. Religion is a Latin word with the meaning religare, meaning to reunite. And what do we need to unite with? It is our individual conscience uniting with the cosmic conscience. The true religion is carried in the heart of every man or woman who tries to reunite it with the life-giving principles. The Tao to the Taoists, Tonantiu for the Aztecs, the demiurge architect of Pythagoras, Allah for the Muslims, the God of the primitive Christians, the unmanifested, Ain, the absolute of the Kabbalists, Brahma for the Hindustanis, Ra for the ancient Egyptians, Jupiter Zeus in ancient Greece and Rome, the great breath, the Almighty, that one that has no name. When one is reunited to this intelligent principle that creates and organizes all life using the law of the three and the law of the seven, then that being has found what he was looking for, which manifests itself as eternal and perpetual happiness, never to be extinguished. Self-knowledge and self-gnosis imply the destruction of the ego and a previous and urgent work for any possible self-realization, which is what gnosis pursues. This is the harmonious development of all the infinite human possibilities. All that aforementioned does not deal with data lightly gotten. Everything written here can be interpreted as authentic experience, which can be lived and is very real. General aspects of Lesson 1. Through the Gnostic studies, we can become philosophers of life, which is someone who has the capacity to control the adverse circumstances presented displays to us in this existence. The true philosopher is one who loves wisdom and knows how to sacrifice pain for the sake of finding true happiness, not just something fleeting as is confused today by humanity. We are making contact with you, dear reader, since you have begun to make this course that approaches life with the spiritual aspects of importance in our life, trying to find the objective and the why we have come to this planet Earth, and the why of our lives. In successive lessons, we will explain different practice to be able to verify everything we say here and everything Gnosis is about, because we do not want you to believe what we say, but through the practices given, you can experiment what Gnosis teaches, since it is the school of regeneration. Shortly, we will give you those techniques of observed observer and the key soul, along with the philosophy of living your moment, self-observation, getting the sense, realizing that we have interior virtues and defects. These defects in Gnostic terms are the psychology of the ego. These have our virtues bottled up, and in the Gnostic psychology, it is the conscience or the essence. Therefore, through these techniques, we can discover our defects, so that when we sacrifice them, that opposite to our defect, it is born, our conscience virtues. For example, we know that any person at any time can become angry, full of wrath. There we say that defect is being manifested, called anger, and cause us bitterness in our life. When we fight and react with anger, wrath comes out against all and everything. It alters our emotional state. When at the moment we have that intimate discovery of the defect of anger, we can begin to fight against it and are able to eradicate it, which causes love and peace with serenity to arise instead of anger. And these are the virtues of the conscience replacing the ego of anger. May God help you to understand this lesson, so that we can advance in the development of this course called Gnosis, with the objective of creating a different center of gravity in our life, and with the purpose living in harmony with everything and everyone surrounding us, so that we can be happy and be self-realized in our real being. We will study the wisdom of the ancient Mayan, Egyptian, Aztecs, Toltec, Greek, Taoist, Hindustani, Buddhist beliefs, and also the Nordics who believed in Thor, the primitive Tibetans, Chinese, Persian, Syrian, Essenes, Scythians, Gnostics, Valentinians, etc., etc. And also the great guides of humanity, especially the contemporary masters, like the VM Samael Anweor, the VM Lakshmi, the VM Moria, the VM Kuthumi, the VM Rakotsi, among others. We would appreciate your feedback about this lesson. Coming up, personality, essence, and ego the next week. Also, please confirm if you want to receive the book, Treatise of Revolutionary Psychology, by the VM Samael Anweor for free. All we need is for you to ask us for it. Thank you very much for your time. We hope this lesson will be useful in your life. May you have peace in your heart and serenity in your mind.